And we're live. Hello and welcome to HEX Therapy Live. I'm your crypto psychologist, Maddie ALLin. So Eric Wall went on the top Bitcoin podcast in the world, and he spent 30 or 40 minutes talking about HEX. I'm going to dissect this from a psychological point of view. And so I think that this could be the best episode of HEX Therapy Live ever. Because I think that there's so much people can learn. I've been on a 6-year crypto journey that started with Bitcoin. And so I think this is going to come full circle. To be fair, I'll probably go ahead and hit the send button now to Eric so he can join the stream if he so dares. But I think he's sleeping right now. Anyway, the point of the matter is he's made a bunch of claims. I have a response to all that. So thanks for being here. Hit the like and subscribe button, and welcome to week 124 of HEX Therapy Live.
It's from Maddie ALLin of HEX Therapy.live. I like Maddie. Maddie tries to make the world a healthier place. He's a mental health professional. He's done research.
Big videos on sudden wealth syndrome.
There's nothing that a human being can do better than try and heal his fellow man.
Maddie ALLin's got that covered. Does emotional, feel-good, mind management, emotion stuff like as his gig because he's a therapist. That's what he does for a living. Like he helps heal people.
All right, so it's true. Eric Wall went on the "What Did Bitcoin Do" podcast, and that's the one with Peter McCormick. Now, there's a long history here. There have been 2 interviews that Richard Hart did of all time that stand out. And one is with the day that HEX launched, he was with Tone Vase. And the other one was with Peter McCormick, where McCormick snuck on stream for a second debate with Richard, spoke over him the whole time, calling him a scammer. It's one of the greatest moments of HEX history. Because it showed how unwilling the Bitcoiners were to deal with this vampire attack on their community. I was a Bitcoiner. I got stolen away because the ideas in HEX are better. The idea in HEX is that you time lock your money and you prove to everybody else on the blockchain that you're going to hold for a certain amount of time. Or you can just trade the coin and pretend like you're not going to hold it. But there's a cost to doing that. And so that's what's called the truth engine. Bitcoin had a truth engine designed into it, but nobody ever used it. Eric Wall doesn't use the time locking function of Bitcoin because he doesn't believe in Bitcoin as much as people in HEX believe in HEX, right? And because Bitcoin isn't designed to cause people to believe in it on the same level as HEX. And so we've already won, but part of the glory of winning is going to be to dunk on the people who are so good at dunking on everybody else, right? So this is going to be very enjoyable. Now, I know some of you don't want me to cover this topic. You don't want me to give attention to somebody you see as a villain, and that's fine. That's fine. Therapy, it's not always easy. This isn't real therapy, of course. I'm just using my free speech, creating my commentary. Now, we've had a number of great minds in the HEX community already cover this topic, and I've watched all the coverage because it's, again, as you'll see with all my points, it's very fascinating. And just as I identified the occurrence of sudden wealth syndrome happening within the crypto community, I experienced it myself, and we'll talk about that. And we do talk about that. That's been something people really love tuning in lately to, the psychology aspects that are coming to life. You're experiencing it in the moment. If you're in HEX and you've time locked, you have more experiential information than anybody who is sitting in their armchair trying to be an armchair quarterback, but they haven't time locked anything. They're in crypto. Well, did they believe in something so much that they proved to everybody else that they weren't going to dump it on other people's heads right away? Did they make saving cool again? No, and this is part of the heart of the meme that is money, the meme that is crypto. This all, you know, as the story goes, you want to talk about a cult? As the story goes, Satoshi was trying to call out the bank failures. Well, let's think about what actually caught on after that. It was Occupy Wall Street. Bitcoin didn't catch on as quick as Occupy Wall Street. And Occupy Wall Street turned into people buying SHIB, people buying Dogecoin, because it's, and maybe to some extent Hex, but it's like, you're so mad at the people who are obviously controlling the money and making things unfair. They're printing the money out of thin air and diluting the value of everybody else's savings to the point that it creates poor mental health for the world to some extent, because people aren't able to save and secure their financial freedom and go on to invent even greater things and have greater productivity, right? We've talked about that on this channel. But just as, we've dissected parts of crypto history, today marks a big day because it's the day the light bulb went off in my head to say, wow, there's this new thing and it's been there all along, and it's called HEX Derangement syndrome. And so I want to break down what that kind of means to me, because I was doing my own research. I was conversing with ChatGPT about, what does this mean in our culture? And Chat was saying that it's a colloquialism. And what that means is it's like, it's not a professional term. If you say like derangement syndrome, and of course I got trained in clinical psychology. And so I have a good understanding of, like, there is a difference between the professional side of things and things that are more slang talk. And people nowadays more than ever can get super butthurt if, if you say something that's not politically correct. So the way that we can address that today is, I will sacrifice my own reputation and admit that I've had crypto derangement syndrome before. And, so it's okay to talk about it if you're the one that's had it too. I think Eric has HEX derangement syndrome. And I think whenever I freaked out about Hedron getting launched, put a 1 in the chat if you remember that. That was Maddie's own episode of Hedron derangement syndrome, right? So we're gonna analyze. I want to do a full debrief on what Eric was saying on the What is Bitcoin podcast, or what Bitcoin did. See, and there are so, like I said, there's so many great minds that went out there and talked about it. We had your friend Sami did a great analysis. We had Johnny Chaos. I also talked to Johnny on the phone for quite some time today. I had the pleasure of doing that. Hexologist covered it, right? And even Trevon covered it. I haven't tuned into him for a long time, but I wanted to hear what he said, because he's seen part of the history and evolution, and I wanted to hear what the critics have to say. So but to really put into context and to think deeply about what's going on here. And my heart goes out to Eric. I'm going to read some of the things that he said. I took some notes, and we're going to analyze it a little bit more. But we're going to take this apart because I think it's really important. Bitcoin could have been the crypto with the best community, and it didn't turn out that way. If you listened to the rest of that interview that Eric had with Peter McCormick, Eric went on to criticize and expose the flaws in the Bitcoin community. I've been talking about that for the past 2 months. I gave more details than Eric did about how this Bitcoin conference elite, this group of Bitcoin royalty, self-appointed people, filled with scumbags too, and some cool people, I would say, They're out there being maximalists and promoting a culture that is very thin. And I think as Hexicans, as the ones who now have the opportunity to claim the righteous spot as the #1 crypto community, it's pretty obvious, but we can always do better. We can do better than ourselves, a month ago. We can keep improving on ourselves. And I think that that's what it takes, because we are in a competitive environment. There are going to be cryptos that come out after Hex that build communities in a different way than we do. But yeah, this is great. So get your comments in there too. Don't be scared to comment back and forth to each other. I'll be reading some of my notes here, but every once in a while I might have a comment that catches my eye. So so whether you listen to the Eric interview or not, here's some important points that I heard. So Eric, he said that he was holding out on his magnum opus to expose Hex. And I was waiting for this. I knew that there was some card that he had that he wasn't playing. And that's part of what drove me crazy about Eric. Because I don't mind having a critic. I think having dissent is healthy. Haters who get debated by Richard and who still play nicely afterwards, like, I have a lot of respect for that. Eric himself has built a cult-like following. I've noticed that before he started throwing around the term. He's got a lot of smart people that tune in because he's so entertaining intellectually in his humorous, trollish ways, right? And he's been depicted in articles and mainstream, like he's the altcoin slayer, and we're going to talk about that identity and what that means. But his magnum opus, which is like his reason for spending all the time that he did in Hex, or his final play, was to expose that everything in Hex that the founder Richard Hart has done, that now it's evolved into a scam because PulseChain isn't coming out. But specifically, which, where do we start? Don't worry, we'll get to it. Basically, he was saying that Richard copied the 27th law of power. Now, you're going to appreciate this because it's, we're on a psychology show here. Eric had a beautiful Freudian slip. He mentioned this book and remember, Eric he's done the proof of work to show that he cares deeply about the Hex community, about being right, about being the villain to Richard's superhero motif. And Eric is envious and jealous of the glory, and he gets a taste of it when he plays this character. And so he's been dressing up as the altcoin slayer and collecting tungsten cubes. Like, he's got a deeply integrated shtick going on, which is fine, but it says a lot that he didn't quote the name of the book correctly. So whether you want to say that that's a Freudian slip, or whether you want to say that he was like somehow trolling himself, like it would be a huge stretch. And I want to hear what you guys think he was doing. But the fact of the matter is, he kept saying that Richard had copied one of the 48 laws of attraction. McCormick says, I thought there were only 7 laws of attraction, right? And Eric, he's mixed up 2 words in his head. He was talking about Robert Greene's book, 48 Laws of Power. And instead, he slipped multiple times and said attraction. So we know Eric, and he admitted he's attracted to power. And that's when, as he projects, and I'll read off the things that he sees in Hex, it's a projection of his inadequacies when it comes to Bitcoin and his own leadership in the crypto space, which Eric, we're going to be here for 15 years. The Bitcoiners aren't. So, you know, it doesn't matter how many years it takes for you to come around, man. You're always welcome with me. And that's why I sent you the link. I know you probably can't make it this time, but hop on with me anytime, bro. So the Hex community is already a better cult than Bitcoin. Bitcoin is a cult. Bitcoin is like a more, and that's, so he spent 30 minutes arguing that in the episode. That was the only other main point that he covered, was how much of a gatekeeping cult, and what that means in the Bitcoin context. Like, he was talking about safetying. Like, I took all safetying's classes. I've eaten a steak dinner with safetying. Okay. So the fact that safetying is like a meat maximalist and, tells everybody in Bitcoin, you're not a true Bitcoiner unless you believe that fiat is causing meat to be, or like, it's causing food to not be based in meat anymore. Like, that's causing malnutrition. I'm actually super on board with that narrative. Like, I think that's true. I grew up in Illinois. My friend's dad was a PhD guy who invented one of the ways to genetically modify corn so that millions of people in Africa didn't die. And like, but that doesn't mean that the nutrition that you're getting out of the soil isn't going to suck, when you can still make crops look like they're full, and really the soil couldn't even support that. So, I mean, that's a side note, but all I'm saying is, if Eric Wall wants to throw down on like who's infiltrated who, I would say I'm way more infiltrated into the Bitcoin community than he is. Well, maybe not than he is into the Hex community, but all in all, who are the 70 Hexicans that are going to the Bitcoin conference this year? It's gonna be pretty sick. So anyway, and then the whole point of like us being a cult, right? Like, that's what the 27th law of power is like Richard's trying to create a cult, and that's what he's using to like abuse power or whatever. Where do we start? I think it's called a non sequitur, or like a straw man argument or something, when you're just saying this is like this, but it's not the same thing, and there's no great metaphor. It's just like, it's a poor comparison, and so basically you're making a weak argument. Like, the reason why Hex being a cult is a weak argument, and you could say that it is a cult, and it depends. If you have a deeper idea than that, then we can talk about the deeper idea. The deeper idea is that Hex, just like Bitcoin to some extent, incentivizes people to work together. And that's called teamwork. And teamwork makes the dream work, right? And so you could call it a religion, you could call it sacrifice, but you could call it a cult. At the end of the day, your friend Sami, he's like, well, being a cult is the best thing you can be in crypto, so thank you, right? And then the other side of it is, well, this is a group of people that are working together in a decentralized way, and they're incentivized to have teamwork. So it's like, which one do you want to be? Like, do you want to be the group of people that isn't getting along, or the group of people that is? Okay, so then we're going to go into the derangement thing too. Because like, yeah, well, let me give more examples about what Eric was doing and saying. So he was wondering if his Magnus Opus will backfire. I think it will backfire, because he couldn't even cite the book correctly. And if that's really his magnum opus, then he really, 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 really failed as a serious analyst of Hex. And he was just here for the memes, which we're here for that too, as you'll see. How serious do you want to be, Eric? Because like, I understand maybe you got the ideas mixed up or whatever, but you said it like this was your magnum opus. So, which one is it? Like, are you going to get the facts right, or what? And it's not, I mean, it's kind of like a cult, but if we actually look at that chapter, it's not Richard isn't doing exactly what it says, keep your words vague but full of promise. How did I know more than Eric Wall did about his magnum opus, 48 Laws of Power? Well, I worked for 7 years as a neuroscientist, and then I worked for 7 years as a therapist. And I chose to work with the hardest population I could find, which was court-ordered people who were court-ordered for drug treatment because they had a serious addiction. And it was incredible how the book, just having the book, the 48 Laws of Power, sitting on my desk, how effective it was at gaining respect with this population of people who had been through the criminal justice system, people who had had their power taken away. And if you read the book, it's written from a very cynical point of view, from, I would say, a very sick point of view. But sometimes if you want to help somebody or let them help themselves or just connect with somebody, you have to start where they're at. You can't start where you're at. So 48 Laws of Power is like, not my cup of tea, but I put it there apparently because it's read in many prisons, and that was the population I was working with. And I wanted to show that I cared about their culture. Because it's people who are in the criminal justice system, like, they've done things wrong, but it's because they've been in a bad environment. And so a lot of times I don't try to blame the individual. I try to let the individual learn how to help themselves, learn how to get along in society again. And there have been some really incredible stories that came from that. And part of that was me knowing about 48 Laws of Power. So it's written in a very dark way. It says, give your followers rituals to perform, as this fosters a sense of belonging and loyalty. Appeal to a higher purpose or cause, as this helps followers feel a part of something larger than themselves. Like, all you're doing is describing a group. Like, you could say that being a fan of a football team is the same thing. You could apply these laws of power of creating a cult-like following. So when you call something a cult, if you're trying to have that be a put down or a compliment, it really depends on the context, because in finances, sometimes being a cult is a good thing. But if you're saying that being in a cult is a bad, so to say it's a good thing is to say, like, you have believers who you can count on, etc. If you're saying it's a bad thing, you might be associating it with like people doing harm to themselves, right? And it fascinates me to no end that we live in such a sick world today with such sick monetary policy that people could see individuals saving money on a blockchain, proving that they believe in it. People could see that as a harmful behavior. Well, look, this was never meant. Magic internet money, crypto, it's a miracle any of it works. Nobody said put your life savings in. If you put an amount of money that you were willing to lose and that turned into your life savings, cool. Hey, like, that's me, like, I'm living proof. And we'll talk more about that here when Eric criticizes the the legal fund, let's say. But so he's asking to himself on the show, like, this is his magnum opus, like, will it backfire? I think it will backfire. Or maybe he'll learn something from all this. Maybe he'll listen to some of the commentary on your friend Sami, on Maddie ALLin, hexologist, right? Trevon. Pick whoever you want your commentator to be. the case to say that being in a cult is a bad thing, again, it goes back to like people harming themselves. And it is true that people can harm themselves with crypto, and that's what much of crypto is charlatans and Ponzi schemes and middlemen who run away with all your money. Sam Bankman fraudster and everybody. But even Eric admits in this interview that Hex is transparent. Whether you like the ownership being a certain percentage in the origin address, shout out to Greg the Duck. He's visiting me today. Whether you like that or not, that's up to you. But the fact that it's transparent means that Hex is not a scam, that there's no lie being told. There's no fraud, right? So respect to Eric for pointing that out. Eric identifies that he thinks having a cult is better than being ultra rich. And so that, again, it's a projection. It says more about Eric than it does about Richard per se. Because, Richard hasn't necessarily had to choose, right? And that's part of where the jealousy comes from. It's like Richard gets the glory and the riches, right? And but then again, how many founders do you know in the top 10 coins that haven't sold? Well, you got Satoshi and Richard. That's it. We're not counting stable coins in here. Cult is short for culture. Huh. That's an interesting take, Bristology. Thanks for that. So Eric, he talks about on the podcast that he had to save us, the Hex community, by trash talking Richard and educating us on technical points that we may not have known about PulseChain because we relied on RH for our financial future. I still don't think he gets time locking. I don't think Eric gets it. I've never heard him say that he time locked anything, so it doesn't surprise me that he doesn't get it. Maybe someday Eric will man up and follow the 120,000 other addresses that have figured this out. And maybe Eric will do an experiment where he pays $10,000 to his future self. And then he can see what it's all about. Because I would be very surprised if Eric had done a significant time lock. And I'm saying like he could time lock for a month or a year or 10 years or like whatever he wants to do is fine. But the point wouldn't be him getting rich. And it would just be him taking the opportunity to realize that there's an experiential vector that he can experience without doing it. It's like it's really hard to learn in words what happens when you send money to your future self. It's delaying gratification on the blockchain. It's using the truth engine. And so look, there have been plenty of people who have spent time interviewing Richard, and whether they called it the dumbest thing they've ever heard or not, I don't think that they really get it. And I think the reason they don't get it is because they haven't tried it. I'm not relying on Richard Hart for my financial future. Right? And like, it sucked buying Hex and then watching it go down and then going up and then going down and going up and down. But like, again, we have an advantage that no other crypto has because we're time locked. And so that helps us survive the volatility that otherwise I would not have been able to survive a 1000x on my money. But I did, and I will continue to be able to because I'm time locked in a ladder. So what started as $100 can turn into $100,000, and you wait for it, right? Eric's friends his crypto friends gave him an intervention. He was liking doing this like anthropological study. He was the scribe, the narrator, to understand the madness of what was going on. He called Hex one of the largest financial schemes, the longest running financial psychosis. All right. Yeah, let's, but then he goes on to talk about his own behavior, that he felt like he was responsible to spend, quote, an insane amount of time being an antagonist, right? And he was depressed after leaving leaving his intense journey within the Hex community. He was clout chasing the Netflix style documentary crew, and his opportunity to be the bad guy that would end up being the good guy. He said, Eric said, it made his life more exciting. He got special perks from being the Antichrist to Richard's godlike status, and that his plan, Eric's plan, was that the community would crumble and he would swoop in and he would save us. That's what he was waiting. That's why he was being so weird and like waiting around, and like we all got this like weird feeling from him. Is like he had this thesis that he couldn't even remember when he went on the show what the book was called, the 48 Laws of Power, not 48 Laws of Attraction. But he had this illusion of grandeur, right? That had a basis in reality. And he probably got hypomanic from all the attention that he got. I mean, it's exciting to get attention, and and being hypomanic just like fills you with energy, and you get less sleep, and like you become not always paranoid, but it's a mixture of symptoms, right? And this is and then I guess now is a good time to like go into like what the definition of HEX derangement syndrome is. When I was talking to GPT, I was like asking, and GPT doesn't like the word derangement. It's like it's a bad word, and it's like, asking me like, are you even qualified? And I'm like, it's fine. I've been trained in psychology. I'm not going to make fun of anybody. I'm not going to diagnose anybody. Like, we're just having a discussion about culture and symptoms and psychoanalysis, and what does it mean if somebody says you have Trump derangement syndrome? And it was really interesting, because there are actually two definitions of Trump derangement syndrome that are opposites. So it's an informal, non-clinical term used to describe a perceived emotional and behavioral reaction to the political actions, policies, or rhetoric of Trump, former President Trump. The term has been employed by both Trump supporters and detractors, although in different contexts. Supporters of Trump use the term to criticize those who oppose him, suggesting that their opposition is irrational, extreme, or driven by an intense dislike of Trump rather than substantive reasons, right? So we saw like ALLin derangement syndrome this week with the BBC reporter, and millions of people tuned into that. I listened to it live, and then I watched the replay. It's brilliant how the reporter who's accusing ALLin that Twitter has more hate speech, he couldn't come up with one example of hate speech. And ALLin called him out on it very succinctly, called him a liar, like, and had this beautiful victory. So against like the media's baseless claims, like it used to be when the checks and balances in the free world were working correctly, that the media wasn't owned by political organizations. The media was independent from politics. And reporters would actually go out there and collect facts, and they would spend like months researching things, like these super smart people who didn't get paid anything. They were just like there to actually be heroes of democracy, right? And that was like, you have the you have the checks and balances. It's like the executive branch, you got the judicial branch, you got the legislative branch, you got the right to bear arms, and you got the freedom of the press, right? And freedom of the press is like a joke these days. It's like a meme in and of itself. And so we saw ALLin derangement syndrome. This guy, this reporter, was like so obsessed with his own idea of what was going on that he didn't get it right. He wasn't being accurate, or he didn't have a source, basically. As a reporter interviewing the richest man on earth, and you get an interview, and then the main issue that you can bring up, you don't even have one example off the top of your head. Like, and the other surprising thing is that he also, like, it was weird that he didn't just like make something up. Like, he was literally so shocked that ALLin asked him for a source or asked him for an example. It's like so hilarious. I mean, that's a beautiful moment in human history, because ALLin bought Twitter to try to expose some of this, and can't believe that it happened live. Anyway, so like HEX derangement syndrome, you could say, is like, from the outsiders who hate HEX, they're saying like, oh, these people are so deranged, they love HEX and they have Stockholm syndrome because they're time locked, and like, they're not going to be able to tell themselves the truth and all that, because they're so time locked, and they're held hostage by Richard, only waiting for him to do something, right? Well, okay, that's like pretty silly and like off base. There might be a thread of truth, and like, yeah, people are incentivized to hope for the best, right? And to highlight the good parts of the technology. I can tell you some bad parts of HEX. Like, you can't move your stake. So if you get your seed words compromised, you're kind of screwed. And maybe there's been some side projects and stuff built on top of HEX that made that a little bit better, but it didn't solve the problem completely, because then you had the trade-off that it would be tradable, and if it's movable. Well, I have a product that fixes that. Now, it doesn't pay you yields when you time lock your HEX, but it makes it so that you can recover something without being tradable, and have a second seed phrase hooked up to it so you can undo a hack. That'll work with Ethereum, any ERC20. We're in audit right now. Hey, Freddie Quotes. Dude, you're going to hang out with Eric Wall tomorrow night, I think. And that's really cool. I'm jealous, man. I wish I'd get to hang out with him, because, and with you, because you guys rock. So HEX derangement syndrome is like the real version that I'm calling, is where people who don't understand HEX, and they've never time locked anything, and they don't care about the truth or truth engines, and they just want to trade and like create middleman situations and dump on people's heads and chase glory for themselves, right? That these people, like, they start to have a mental break whenever they realize that maybe HEX isn't a scam. And you can ask GPT, is HEX a scam? It'll fill you in, right, on why it's not a Ponzi. Now, Eric didn't call it a scam. He got some things wrong about PulseChain, but he got some things wrong about HEX in the beginning. So he just has to catch up. And Eric's got a lot going for him. He's a really smart guy. He called out Michael Saylor the other day. Boss move. I think I talked about that on this show. So the kid's got a lot going for him. But he's not getting the details right when it comes to HEX. Well, except for one. Here, I'll give you another example to prove that I'm not deranged about HEX, and that Eric is, right? So the example is that the user controlled inflation at HEX is 30%. Now, most Hexicans would be pissed off that I said that, and they would, can I get to NYC? I don't know, maybe. I mean, like, I would have to drink a lot of milk before I go because my collarbone is still a bit messed up, but I don't know. Maybe I'll maybe. We'll talk after the show. So if you take out the OA coins, basically, like the amount of HEX that's user controlled, the inflation is 30%. But Eric knows this. I know this. Like, it's in the contract code. Like, anybody can reason about it. Like, we misspoke a lot, like in the early days, because it was like, it seemed like it was 3.69%. Like, you can't have it both ways. That, like, the OA hasn't sold, and like, if it hasn't sold, then the actual user controlled amount of coins is lower, which is great. And if the inflation has been 30% and the price of HEX is still up hundreds of X compared to Bitcoin in the same amount of time, this is like even more of a bullish thing. This is incredible. It's like you're misinterpreting it completely if you think that Hexicans are dumb or that's a stupid thing. It's like, people aren't here to argue about what the inflation is. And like, if they knew what it was, maybe they'd be even more bullish, right? Because how is it that the price is still so bouncy, right? Eric called the wrong direction of the HEX price. That probably made him somewhat, that it added to his derangement, that he has this deep insecurity that he's wrong about something, and that HEX is going to be a better Bitcoin. He said HEX was going sub-zero to sub-0 cents, and but he didn't know what I know when I was buying $1,000 of HEX at 1.7 cents. What I knew was what it feels like to time lock your money, and that that we all are out here sacrificing our like publicity, like we're in the public eye. Johnny and I and everybody else who goes live, like, we have costs, social costs to our safety, to our operational security, to like our time, to our responsibility to the community and to be there for others, and like, legal risks, even if we're not doing anything wrong. And so I knew that I wasn't going to give up when the price hit below 2 cents. I was on stream telling people, if HEX goes below a penny, I'm going to start selling all my stuff. I'm going to sell my computers and my phones and whatever I have that I'm not using. That was my plan, right? Because I didn't know if it would, because you can't know. It's something you can't know. But what I did know is what it feels like to have a truth engine on your side, and that that's a new phenomenon in crypto. So he got the call wrong. He called it wrong. So where's my tungsten cube, right? I didn't bet him, but like, we deserve a tungsten. Richard or somebody deserves a tungsten cube for Eric acting like he's the savior and actually pointing people in the wrong direction, right? Because we're not here to argue about the inflation rate. We're here to like make money and to like figure out what it is that you do after you make money, after you get financially free. What, do you become a better person? Do you become bitter? Do you become an asshole? Like, how can we work together to guide others and pay it forward, right? How can we, Nardo for the win is out there opening businesses for people that are unemployed that he cares about. He's David Morales is down there. He's buying hundreds or maybe even thousands of meals for people at Christmas with his Hex money, right? Like we've all sacrificed. The other, and it was really clear that Eric has this like addiction to the Hex community and like wanting to be there to pick up the pieces and to benefit from the demise of Hex by gaining a cult like following. Like he wants that, right? So anyway, yeah, I like I forgot where I was going with that. Let me get, I'm sure we'll come back around. Let me get into the I haven't even looked to see how many people are watching. 143 people watching. Hit the like and subscribe button. Okay, we're going to talk about his take on PulseChain. So he wanted to steer the community. He told his partner he was depressed after leaving Hex. Next, he started 2 companies and had his rebirth year. That's awesome, dude. Because you were wrong about Hex going below a penny. You wrecked people by filling them with doubt, sowing the seeds of doubt so that you could benefit from the community falling apart. That's like that's not a joke anymore. It's not like a meme. It's not funny when you wreck people. There were very few people who were left like defending the community and like, we're all in crypto, man. We should be on the same side. Like I support people who are in Bitcoin, but they don't support us, right? And that's okay because we're the bigger community in the sense that we have bigger character than you do. We have bigger ethics than you do. We have a truth engine where we can prove that we're going to keep holding and you don't use yours. It's built into the Bitcoin code that you can time lock, but nobody uses it because they all are playing short-term games. We're playing long-term games. So no wonder you're jealous. No wonder we have more believers who work better as a decentralized team than in Bitcoin, right? So we got it. You're jealous and all that, right? So Eric starts digging in on Pulse, and he's like, well, now he said he's not friends with Richard anymore because he had to call Richard a scammer for PulseChain not being up. Eric also, he had said that he got an intervention with his friends to stay away from Hex, but he just posted on something I wrote 2 days ago, and he was trying to say like, well, like PulseChain is not going to be what you think it is. And it fits with this whole thing he was saying on the stream about he wants to save people, right? And like, so dude, it's cool you want to save people, like, but I wish you would know what you're talking about. And it's, again, I like that we have dissent. Like, I'll admit to you now what the flaws are, but we got to get one thing straight is we sacrificed for PulseChain. Okay. That couldn't be clearer. And so it's hard, but there's always that temptation because people like free money, and it's easy to get these things confused. But look, Hex made us so rich, or our hard work made us so rich, whatever the funding source was, that people were out there literally sacrificing for freedom of speech and freedom of movement. And people do that all the time. It's called volunteering. It's called like funding a political action committee. It's called lighting your money on fire or burning something. It's called but it's also, in this case, it's different because it's a digital form of making a statement. And we were making a statement, and that statement was made with no reversibility, right? When we sent our crypto that we could have sold at that moment for a lot of money, and we sent it to this address and we had this understanding that there would be no expectations. bro, we are already living. We've already had 3 years of living with the understanding of what no expectations means. And we live in this culture where we are volunteering, like putting ourselves at risk, like blowing our stacks to help others. Like me, I used 3 of my Uniswap airdrops that could have turned in. They were $1,200 to $1,400 each. And at that time, if I had done a 1 year, if I had done a 1 year time lock, I could have turned around and taken that and gotten probably almost 1 million hex from each one. So I left 3 million hex on the table, bro, which is like at the all-time high would have been $1.5 million, dude. But I took that money, even believing so much, and that's where the paradox comes in. Even believing so much that hex could be valuable, I spent that on marketing for hex, right? People were out here spending hundreds of dollars when hex was a third of a penny, hundreds of dollars left and right to support the community, to buy better cameras, to buy better microphones, to have a better presentation, to go online and put our security at risk, put our everything at risk, just because we're fans of this thing. And so the idea of Richard doesn't work for us, hex is a finished product, like these are things that matter, and we already practiced it for years. And so if somebody else comes along and does a sacrifice, that's really different to me than this idea that we're talking about, where like we've already got a track record, we already know what it means, like we already went through all the stages of this. You'll notice a lot of the hex streamers have a healthy relationship with their audience. A lot of other communities in other parts of crypto don't. I mean, Peter McCormick, like he doesn't have the type of relationship with his audience that we do. And the reason for that, the reason that the hex audience sticks around, and we could see that in the bear market, we could see that the rest of crypto left and hex didn't, is that we're time locked. And we understand that the streamers don't work for you, right? And they're out there trying to pay it forward. They're out there volunteering. And so when there was this opportunity to join in the meme of money is a statement, money isn't real, money is we're sacrificing this money, and throwing up a middle finger, it's just like buying a picture of a dog. It's literally free speech. It's like it's like F your money. If you're just going to print paper into infinity, then we're going to buy pictures of dogs that make us really rich. Like everybody loves dogs. A dog is the most popular pet on earth. Like, so ha ha ha, right? Like that's the other side of Occupy Wall Street. That's where it came from. So just like Bitcoin came from unhappiness with the fiat system, and Occupy Wall Street came from unhappiness with the corruption that's entered the world economy, Hex is here to put a hex on your money, because your money is already cursed, and it's about time that we started acting like it. And so when Hexicans had the choice between sacrificing for freedom of speech and freedom of movement and becoming part of this set of users that could be open to airdrops anytime in the future, that's a real thing. And we sent the money, and there's nothing you can do at that point. Like that, if we wanted, it's a free market. If we wanted to have a written agreement with Richard, we could have asked for it. That's not what we wanted, right? So, lawyers can do all their things and whatever, but like, I didn't take down my streams. We were talking about this the whole time. The wording was pretty clear. I knew what I was doing. I love airdrops. I loved airdrops before PulseChain got invented. I was talking about them. I don't know if that had anything to do with probably not, like there's my delusion of grandeur, but like, Richard used to listen to the stream every once in a while. And maybe the fact that Molly and I were talking so much about airdrops, maybe that entered in the public arena at some point. But Richard did more than just invent like what I think is the most brilliant game theory in all of crypto. And he's about to repeat the three-peat. And we could talk about that in one of these streams, how I'm falling in love with PulseX, and it's like really serious. Okay. But let's get back to what Eric said. He said, so he's starting off with the wrong context, that like we're expecting something, or that this is an ICO or something. It's like, dude, have you ever paid your future self? Have you ever sacrificed? Like you didn't sell out your audience, right? Peter McCormick like takes sponsorships with companies that go down 70% or 90%. Eric Wall takes people's money into a hedge fund, and that hedge fund goes down over 90%. Like, Maddie doesn't have a hedge fund. Maddie doesn't accept sponsorships, right? Maddie has the ads turned off on his YouTube channel. So if you don't pay for YouTube, I'd recommend that you do. It's really cool. I use it every day. But if you don't pay for YouTube, YouTube will show you ads to cover their expenses and profits. But I don't get any of that money because I turn that part off. Because people send me money. They volunteer it with super chats, and I love it, right? But I'm not here for that. I'm here to scale this idea that money can be good for your mental health, not just bad. So Eric's saying all these things that just are in the wrong context. They're not true. He's got it all wrong. So he's like, Richard promised that PulseChain would be out before Ethereum 2.0. We were bragging about that. That's for sure. We thought it was possible. We also thought a 10,000x in Hex was possible, and that was possible. Coming out before Ethereum, well, I don't think anybody is saying that it would have been a better idea to come out before. Like, we updated our worldview, and you should try it sometime, because it's incredible. Like, if we had promises, then maybe we would have had to stick to them. And I'm seeing we as like a decentralized community of people who are all like contributing ideas. Like, Richard doesn't come up with this stuff all on his own. He has like Telegram groups where people pitch in. Like, this dude for years, who was probably already a billionaire in crypto, would sit on his throne and answer questions for like 8 hours at a time on YouTube Live. Richard Hart. You can go back and watch the streams. Most accessible billionaire of all time. And now, I don't blame him. Like, thank God he doesn't try to read everything or do everything. But he's surrounded by a lot of brilliant people, just like Eric Wall is, kind of, except to a greater extent. And so there's like a whole decentralized like DAO in the real sense, not in the sense of like somebody's trying to sell you like a shitcoin voting system. But in like the real, true, what it always could have been, ideal sense of like a DAO is like there are lots of people who sacrifice for the fact that like the fees were too high in Ethereum. They were too high. Like, and then Eric has the nerve to say that he tried the PulseChain testnet and it barely works. Bro, clip this. All of crypto barely works. Bitcoin barely works. Ethereum barely works. Monero barely works. Like, Coinbase barely works. Bro, stable coins barely work. Bro, fiat money barely works, man. Everything in finance literally barely works, okay? In Bitcoin, I was buying Bitcoin miners to sell them on eBay, man, and I was paying some of the highest fees that have ever been paid in Bitcoin, like by a normal person. I was paying like $150 to send my like stupid Bitcoin to Bitmain as like a complete pleb. All right. Just like learning the game, right? So I'm over here flipping ASICs, you know, buying them for 1,200 and selling them for 5,000. By the end of the day, I'm like losing lots of money because of the whole Bitmain hustle. So, you know, like you live and you learn, man, in Bitcoin. But Bitcoin, my friend, it barely works. I wanted to program, so like I learned. I don't know anything about programming. I learned Python, and I learned how to run a Bitcoin full node reading Mastering Bitcoin by Andreas, like did all these things because I wanted to do a proof of concept for my first idea of like programming mental health into money. And it was to pay myself a fraction of a Bitcoin every time I took a step with my Fitbit. So I like you know, like I spent months on this. I'm like, I'm a mental health therapist at this point. Like I don't you know, like I'm looking for healthy hobbies because that's what I'm preaching to my clients. Like, you want to get over your addiction, you want to live a healthier life. Like, you know, you have to have healthy hobbies, and that's how you can make friends and you know, like change your environment, all that, change your behavior, and like become the best version of yourself possible. So I'm like, after I was a therapist for 3 years, then it clicked. I was like, holy shit, I should follow my own advice. It's working with all these people are having awesome lives. I should too. And some therapists never realize that, and they suck as therapists. But I realized, like, practice what you preach. So that's how I got into Bitcoin so heavily, was that I was looking for a hobby. And so I spent months. My brother's a programmer, so I'm like on the phone with him all the time, like, bro, how do I get this? How do I choose which folder I need to go to in my command line, you know, so I can make this dumbass Bitcoin full node run, so I can, you know, see if it's possible to pay myself for behavioral activation, right? Contingency management is like more effective than talk therapy. So there's like this huge, like, it's this entire field that if it was applied in psychology would like make the world a better place, hands down. Like if we could scale, you know, contingency management where people are paying themselves to quit using drugs or like stop being depressed and like all this stuff, right? So this was I was so passionate about the tech and the mental health tech and the crypto tech. And I'm like trying to make it work, man. Got all the way to the point where I'm talking to the Fitbit API, SDK, blah, 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 whatever, right? And then I figure out it's not going to work because of transaction fees. Nobody wants to pay $2 every time they take a step so they can reward themselves with 1 penny. Like it. So my point is that everything in crypto barely works. Dude, I will agree with you that testnet barely works. It's gotten better since it came out. And I think, so look, fair criticism. Okay. But, you know, eat your own dog food on that one. Like, you know, PulseChain wouldn't be needed if Ethereum didn't just barely work, right? Because we'd be able to onboard the next billion people without them getting hacked. Time Pays Me solves this. And we'd be able to onboard the next billion people and they wouldn't be paying $1,000 transaction fees to set up a bank account, right? So PulseChain, we need it now more than ever. Your assessment that gas fees are low now is because there's only 100,000. Well, there's what Sami says, there's 500,000 regular users of Ethereum today. Bro, the world population just hit 8 billion. We're going to need to do a little bit better. And nobody's even talking about this except Richard Hart, Hexicans, people contributing game theory. I got an idea, Eric. Like, you want to make the world a better place and save everybody? And if you know so much about Aragon and, you know, game theory, why don't you contribute to the game theory of PulseChain? Huh? You know, why did you spend a year or 6 months or 3 months or whatever it was trolling us, like making bets with people, trying to humiliate people, putting people down, sowing seeds of doubt when Hex did not go below a penny like you said it would, right? Causing people to miss out on the fastest appreciating top 10 crypto in of 2023. It's Hex, right? So you could have contributed. You could have become a hero without hoping for the demise of Hex, but instead you decided to be a hater, and that's, you know, that's why we you know, that's why we danced on the coffin, right? So okay, so you say it's just a copy and paste, right? Because it's not gonna work this time. Not that it worked last time, but at least the people who watch my show aren't going to get the seeds of doubt sown into them about PulseChain. It's just a copy and paste. Okay, well, let's be intellectually honest. It's not just a copy paste, because if I copy and paste Ethereum, it doesn't have Uniswap built into it where the fees actually go to buy and burn a token that isn't just duct taped on. So also, you've never gotten a copy of the system state with Hart's law accounted for. So you're just going to ignore Hart's law? You're going to ignore that AMM technology is like the greatest thing since sliced bread. You've got Bitcoin being invented. If you want to go through like the top 5 moments in crypto history, you got Bitcoin being invented. It's stops double spends. You got in a decentralized way, right? You got Ethereum, world computer. Now you can build apps. You got Uniswap. You can have a decentralized exchange, so you don't have to require middlemen, because the whole point of crypto is to not have middlemen, right? And then you got Hex, Truth Engine, where you can prove how long you're going to hold, right? Where was I going with that? Yeah, so I would say improving on one of the top 5 inventions in crypto history. Well, actually, it's like improving on all of them, isn't it? Because like Hex is a better Bitcoin, because it has provable a store of value function that Bitcoiners don't use, the time lock function, and it has awesome price performance, and it has a badass community of people. You got PulseChain is replacing Ethereum, and PulseX is replacing the 3rd greatest invention of crypto history. So having those integrated, like the people who were rich enough to sacrifice or smart enough to sacrifice for PulseChain and PulseX, are the people who now, it's like people who got rich in Hex and people who got rich any way they wanted to, like the people who saw the vision, those are the ones who are going to get all the coins. So it's not like the same set of users in Ethereum. It's not your normal fork or airdrop. It's like Hex. Hex was a UTXO fork of Bitcoin in some regards, and it was a vampire attack on Bitcoin. Now we're vampire attacking Ethereum. You don't think that's a big deal? You're calling it just a copy paste? All right, man. Well, we'll see. We got you know, let's see. I don't like betting, but I would probably bet with Eric about something. He said he's not calling Hex a scam, but it's transparent. But he doesn't know about Pulse. Again, Of course, he doesn't know. He's never sacrificed. He never sent money to his future self. He always expects something from people, and that's where Bitcoin has a tragedy of the commons. Hex doesn't. Hex has people volunteering. That's part of why he's attracted to us and wants to pick us up off the floor when Hex fails, right? But how can Hex fail when everybody's time locked? Unless you're somebody who just wants such a short timeline and you're impatient and you are expecting stuff from others, and then you're probably in the wrong coin. Because part of the truth engine is, well, you're learning about the system, you're proving to yourself how much you believe, and that's a feature, right? The volatility is a feature. It's the traders, get wrecked, like anything. Okay, and then, bro, you wanted to like criticize Hex influencers for saying that they're infinitely rich, and then they want $10,000 for legal fees. Bro, I'm pretty sure Peter McCormick, with all the millions of dollars that he's had to spend, like defending himself against Craig Wright, I'm pretty sure he's had some help, right, with his legal fees. And so that's not uncommon. And he sells his audience out. We don't sell our audience out. I sacrificed, you know, $3,600 on my Uniswap airdrops for this community. And people saw that. And some of them didn't sacrifice. They bought the coins because they believed, just like I did. And I helped them believe more in Hex. And so some of them, like, you know, had a 10x or 100x since then. And some of them are just, you know, they wanted to pitch in for my legal fees. Dude, that's awesome. That's incredible. It's like, no wonder you're jealous of that. Yeah. People who don't have a tragedy of the commons is rare. It's like, I mean, that's like a whole thing. So if we've stumbled upon an anthropological or, you know, a psychological instance where humans aren't acting the same as normal, they're acting in a better way where they support each other and, like, you know, they're like paying for each other's legal fees and you know, volunteering. That's incredible, man. That's incredible. So that should make you feel warm and fuzzy inside. If not, maybe you're dead inside. Yeah. Okay, well, if he sacrificed, then he did it wrong, because he's not acting like it. It's like he doesn't get the no expectations thing. So he didn't sacrifice. He sent money with expectations, and that's wrong, man. Like, be part of the solution, not part of the problem. Then he talks about financial domination with a fat guy instead of a hot girl. I'm tired of you fat shaming Richard. Richard knows he's fat, and he gets more hot girls than Eric. So jealousy, big surprise. Findom with the fat guy. Like, again, you know, you're doing a straw man or some sort of like a fallacy, right? But the idea is, I mean, I don't know. That's kind of an interesting comparison. I'm not gonna lie. We could get into that. But the problem with the analogy is that we're not like, you know, we didn't send our money to Richard for him to spend it on clothes or to pay us back in the future. Like, those are expectations. And like, we would have, dude, I'm sure, you know, like, if you got rich from Bitcoin, if you bought Bitcoin at like a penny and then you had like such strong hands that you held to $100 or $10,000 or something, man, and you ever met the dude that invented that shit that made you financially free, bro? Even if you're just financially free like me, like you're financially free for like a year, and then you'll figure it out. You know, like you're getting more skills and you can always go back to your day job, but right now you're like trying to build something. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's it's no expectations. I don't know how to emphasize it even more. So Richard's not a scammer, and he is transparent, and we have no expectations, and we don't just sit around begging other people to do work for us. Instead, we do the work ourselves, and we onboard people because it's cool to save money, and that's the meme and the reality, and like it's got lots of layers to it, and we're still discovering the emergent behavioral principles of paying your future self, right? I could have had an extra year of like expenses to have a longer runway, but I bought a DeLorean, like a real one, not just a stuffed one, and I drove it around to bring more attention to paying your future self in Hex. And I didn't even really like the movie. I shouldn't say I didn't like Back to the Future, but it's not like it was my favorite movie. It's not that I ever knew that I would buy a DeLorean if I had extra money, but back, and it was lots of fun. And I'm wearing the shoes that lace themselves, that are a real thing. Like what is this world? What is this life? Like, you know, why wouldn't I want to pay back? Why wouldn't I have this beautiful relationship with the community where I don't want to sell them out, and they can go out and pay it forward themselves to the next person, right? So Eric goes on to talk about like making a better Bitcoin culture. I'd love to talk to him about all that. It's he wants to have a better Bitcoin conference. I couldn't agree more. So HEX derangement syndrome, I mean, it's people, whether it's Eric or somebody else, they may be addicted to analyzing crypto. They may become hysteric or deranged. And there's that like manic energy within it. There's the illusions of grandeur that he's going to save everybody, but it's fueled with envy. In his case, he's got these like biblical comparisons, right? He wants significance, and he sees this team of believers that are fans of something. And I don't think we're religious. I don't think like comparing us to the 48 laws of power is like the most on point thing you could do. We can, I mean, the community has criticized Richard at times, right? Like his outrage marketing, we didn't like that. We told him to like cut it out. He ended up cutting it out, right? There was a run-in I had with him, and I am like really happy after the online Pulse conference that he took it more seriously. The feedback of, dude, like don't scare off all these wholesome people I'm bringing in, bro, right? So RH is not like a god to Hexicans. It's like if you ever met Steve Jobs, you would be like, dude, I don't care how weird you are. Not to say, well, I mean, every eccentric billionaire, genius, inventor, Mensa, big PP, you know, like every larger than life character is going to have a fan base, like just like a professional sports player. For those of you who like sports, you could say, what would it be like to meet Michael Jordan or Kobe Bryant or LeBron James or whoever, Tiger Woods, whoever you look up to, right? You would geek out about that. Come on. You would geek out. So it's, and then, you know, and then come on, for the movie, right? The trailer, we've all watched it 100 times. Like we're addicted. It's fine. Say, you know, it's a good trailer, man. And people are like, describe Richard in one word. And everybody's like, God. And then like the orchestra is playing and stuff. Man, that's a movie, dog. Like that's a dramatic, what do you call it? Like a dramatization right? So you want to misquote 48 Laws of Power. You want to say it's word for word what Richard is doing, this scheme he's bringing on the community. He's not telling the truth, man. You're not paying attention. You think we expect something from Richard? Of course, everybody wants something for free. It's called an airdrop. It's called being in crypto, man. It's called living in this simulation. Okay. But at the end of the day, man, we would have arranged a different thing if we all wanted to chip in on something that was like centralized and that had expectations. We would be living our lives much differently. We would have formed like a PulseChain company, registered member of FDIC, like shit, right? We could have done that, man, and we didn't. So if you're still lost about what crypto is, and it's like you think it's running a hedge fund, or you think it's being FTX, or you think it's trading, is it like, dude, trading's cool, man, like come trade, come trade in our coins that we haven't locked up yet, right? So that's fine. At the end of the day, Eric is projecting more dependency, insecurity, need for validation, imposter syndrome, wanting to be this white knight. And we all get an imposter syndrome when we build an audience, when we get disappointed meeting our heroes, when we, have to balance being real people and people on stage. And even if there's a full overlap for some of us, like Johnny and I talk about, we make ourselves vulnerable by being our true selves on film, and then that comes with its own can of worms. But for us, it works out better, and Johnny and I aren't like everybody else. And there's a lot of other people in Hex, though. It's kind of a trend. It's kind of cool to be yourself. And when people meet us at meetups, they usually say something about that. It's cool. So if you want to do better by yourself and join Team When, it's not a question of if, but when, now or in years from now, whatever, then that's the advice I would say is, if you feel a survivorship guilt about getting mad gains from crypto, or the opposite, you like wrecked people by giving them bad advice or being a middleman, then you can feel that guilt and you can try to help others, right? But trying to be a white knight and, everything is, you just got to make sure you're fighting for the right team and you're giving the right facts. I think you've got it backwards. And so that's okay. That's what we're here for. Yeah, Eric brought up like one good point of like, I think what he was trying to say, which is something I've wondered myself, is like, he was like, oh, Richard doesn't know what he's talking about, and that means that PulseChain is a scam. No expectations, one, so you're wrong. Transparency, you know what you were getting into. It was very clear. You can only click the send button. Nobody made you click the send button. Nobody said you were getting any investment, right? It's called a sacrifice. Pretty clear. Also, part of that is that Richard doesn't have to tell you all of his great ideas as soon as he gets them. Also, Richard doesn't have to do anything for you. He doesn't have to build PulseChain. Somebody else could come along and do it, or whatever. It's like, these are separate things. Sacrificing for freedom of speech and freedom of movement in a bull market when hexes perform so well is a different thing than fixing the Ethereum gas fees and doing that in a game optimized way. So with the example of like, well, what's the compatibility of forking coins now and then forking the code later? Like I've even been saying, oh, it'd be cool if we integrated Shanghai later on to let everybody lock up their coins and not unlock them right away. If you want to be a validator in the beginning, you have to be like a true valid, you have to be a true validator like Ethereum started off with. And then we can see how it goes for Ethereum. But Eric is like questioning to himself, or he said he asked Richard or something, was like, he was trying to figure out like, or maybe somebody else asked Richard how that would go with integrating Shanghai. And Eric's like, Richard said he didn't really know, or he, he didn't have a good answer for Eric. Well, first of all, you don't get a good answer. Like, you're not entitled to a good answer. Second of all, maybe Richard is being super chill about PulseChain. Maybe he's waiting for more people to contribute. Maybe he's got it all figured out in a master plan. That's the whole point of a sacrifice, is you're not going to know those things, because nobody works for you, bro. Nobody works for you. So, it's a technical question. If Eric is so technical, maybe he can find the answer to that instead of just criticizing it for months. He already has a line of communication with Richard. So if Eric, if he wants a better PulseChain, he should contribute. He should consider contributing, instead of asking other people to do the work for him. And that's might be where he's getting confused. What do I think about Twitter and eToro sponsorship for mass adoption of crypto this cycle? I think it's incredible. I saw that today on Twitter. I think it's an amazing thing. So to wrap up, like Eric accusing Richard of like wanting to create a cult-like following and deceiving people and stuff, we've gone over how that's not true. I think Richard is kind of like Moses, and Eric is like the Pharaoh, and the code is like God in this case. Although my analogy is still bad, because the code isn't all knowing. It's like the code is just the code. But if you want to project like biblical things on people, all right, RH is a prophet, and Eric is like a bad leader or something, right? But he's got potential. Eric is so smart, and just give me a tungsten cube and I'll show you the way, my friend. So Robert says that's a great analogy. Glad you got something out of it. Melv Tony said 7.8 cents. Right on. Yeah, so Twitter is supposedly going to team up with eToro and allow people to exchange crypto on the platform. We don't know how soon that could be, but wouldn't that be great for crypto adoption? And we've seen that in previous bull runs that this happened, that more adoption happened, and we want it to be more decentralized and for people to have self-custody. But having more people buy up the price, that's cool. Elon seems pretty cool in terms of being pro crypto. So let's let him onboard the masses, right? Yeah, so HEX derangement syndrome is like you can't handle you can't handle how good this community is, how our truth engine makes us better than Bitcoin. And so you're going to have to lie to yourself to protect your identity if you're really ingrained in this identity that it can't be HEX. Like, this is, you didn't want crypto to go this way. You invested everything into it, and now you're getting psychotic and you're losing touch with the facts, right? And you're building up these narratives in your mind that don't correspond directly to reality. That's what we're seeing. And what is the cure for this is like listening to people who you don't agree with and grounding yourself, trying to do better self-care, esteem yourself so that you don't have to rely on others for your self-validation, right? The way that you would start is with something really easy, like every little thing you can do for yourself, whether it's brushing your teeth or, you know, taking a shower, or even if it's things you already do, taking your vitamins, taking your omega-369, what you're doing when you do those behaviors is you don't miss out on the opportunity to tell yourself, the reason I'm taking care of myself in this moment is because I'm worth it, because I deserve to be my best. And when you combine talking the talk and walking the walk at the same time, that becomes a powerful way to change the beliefs that you have gotten from society and from your environment and from the struggles that you pursued in life. And those struggles, you know, they can get the best of us. And so when you build back your better self and you try to become the best version of yourself you can, part of that usually involves esteeming yourself and matching that with a increasing level of self-care based on wherever you need to start. Jordan Peterson talks about the struggle of cleaning your own room, and that sometimes we have to be honest with ourselves that we're at such a pathetic point of self-care that cleaning our room is too much of a task, and that um, we could live our whole lives that way with avoiding every opportunity for self-care, or bringing order to our lives. But at the same time, if we break it down in enough chunks, give ourselves permission to admit that our lives are this pathetic and that it's not our fault, or, well, that's probably too big of a question to tackle. But to focus in the smallest little behavior. And Peterson gives this example of telling this guy, just put the vacuum in your room. You don't have to vacuum it. And that's what we're talking about, is if you can make the task so small and still give it meaning, then you can experience that sense of success to yourself that you otherwise wouldn't. And then you can build yourself into much, 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 much greater things once you've started proving to yourself that you're worth it, and that then you start believing in yourself and believing in your opportunity for behavior change. And it becomes a positive feedback loop. Just off the phone with Marco. What is up? Facts, Maddie. I've been so low before that I was laying in a bed of literal garbage, unable to even throw it away. Self-care is so important. Absolutely. Absolutely. I hope you're doing better now. Everything in life counts and is a part of the process. That's right. We must build and share with one another. That's right. Access Alive, how's it going? So many amazing Hexkins here in the chat. Maddie, have you ever been in a physical altercation or always have a mental clarity to self-control? I've been there before, and most of the time I have a pretty good amount of self-control, but yeah, I think that it's, again, the starting point for everybody might be a little different, but I usually like to encourage people to start with omega-369 because it adds to the hardware that your brain needs. 25% of your brain, of the weight of your brain, is supposed to be omega-3, and a lot of people don't get it in their day-to-day diet. And so just getting this food supplement that you can get in your grocery store for $10 a month or whatever it is, it made a noticeable difference in my life. I had an aha moment. I wasn't expecting the boring, repetitive tasks and chores that I would avoid, or that I wouldn't make the most of, until I got those under control. But it I became motivated when I started taking omega-3, and I started thinking more clearly, and then I started recommending it to my clients, and they started thinking more clearly, and it's just an incredible thing. So check that out. Yo, real recognizes real. Thank you, Maddie. Hey, my pleasure. ETH is ripping. Alts are on the brink of running alongside. Hey, I love that. The crazy thing about PulseChain is all the ERC20 dudes that don't know about PulseChain will one day find out and realize that they have a shitload of money for free waiting. It very well could be, even if it's years down the road. That's correct. And I hope I can do my part to popularize PulseChain and Hex by going on more mainstream crypto channels and talking about time pays me, which is kind of an opportunity for people to dip their toe into time locking, where people can time lock any cryptocurrency that is on the Ethereum chain. So ETH or ERC20 tokens, also anything on PulseChain, particularly PulseX, Pulse, and Liquid Hex, or really any token that's a PRC20. But I think the thing that will sell even more than that is people being able to undo a hack by having a second seed phrase set up. And we're in audit right now. I can't wait to hear back because it's really exciting to almost be ready to launch this on Ethereum. And like I've said before, it's overwhelmingly exciting, the level of influencers who are already signaling to me that they probably want to interview me once the technology comes out, because this, I hope, will be a major upgrade and something that gives people a new experience. Like I'm suggesting Eric Wall would benefit from experiencing a truth engine. The truth engine in Time Pays Me is different enough from Hex because it doesn't pay a yield. All it does is protect you from yourself, gives you a drip so you can get a weekly amount of your crypto dripped back to you, and allows you to undo a hack. Like, this is what crypto is meant for, was to be better. And so how cool is that? Really excited. And I appreciate all your guys' support. People who really want to know all my alpha, I always post it in the Telegram, t.me/smartvaultme. That was the old name of the project. And that's where I've got like over 1,000 people tuning in. Well, there are some people who are in there and they don't even look at the alpha. So, oh well. Sci-Vibe comes into play. We can really change ourselves. Hell yeah. Imposter syndrome is the most common syndrome of our time. I think in certain populations, you see it the most. Like professors and academics get this a lot. People who have been really successful in business, or even you win the lottery or you get suddenly wealthy, you feel imposter syndrome is like, I don't deserve this. How did I do things that were so great? Is there something wrong with me? It's like feeling a lot of self-doubt, self-criticism, and just sometimes like depersonalization. You don't feel like yourself. You lose touch with your identity, or with your grip on reality from like a identity point of view. So it is almost a type of identity crisis. The way that you would maybe go about trying to make that a little bit better. With imposter syndrome, again, it's just what I was talking about before. Esteem yourself, ground yourself. Grounding can happen with physical exercise, with meditation, or a combination of both. I go on walks. Before I had my collarbone broken, I would go on runs, and I meditate while I'm doing that, and it clears my mind. You can use self affirmations, build that into your routine. When you're brushing your teeth, you're telling yourself that you're doing a good job, that you're worth it. and then talk to other people who have been through it, who have been hyper successful, and so it's a tough one. It's something we should do a special episode about. Yeah, I don't know. I switched the topic somewhat, but I wanted to get through that. Speaking to the mindset of money in a game theory setting and paying your future self is the true genius of crypto. You are the investor, the bank, and the borrower. There's never been anything like it. Clifton Lewis in the house. He gets it. I love that. Well put. Thank you for your comment. Everybody who's like throwing that much knowledge into the comments, you know what's up. The funniest part of the Bitcoin maxis hate on Richard and how he looks and what he does, but their leader has never ever shown his coward face and hides in the shadows. At least Richard shows his face. Boom. Love the Pulse Hat Maddie. Sell them on Amazon. This was actually gifted by Brian Magruder and Rochelle Private Equity. They have been evolving themselves to make better and better hats. They donated a lot of hats to the meetup that I'm having coming up here in the middle of May at the Bitcoin conference. And so they gave me one of these prototypes that's different than the ones we're handing out there. But I guess they have a plan where they want to do different style hats to celebrate different Hex meetups. And what an amazing thing. But yeah, I got to tell you, like, I always have a love-hate relationship with like ordering merchandise and delivering on that for the conferences and stuff. But yeah, I can't make hats this cool. I just wear them. The thing to do to win is to celebrate all aspects of yourself, victories. The attitude of gratitude is a good one. Absolutely. Robert, old dude. RH is a visionary leader with a profound vision and understanding of advanced information and is willing to share it with us. Hell yeah. Let's see. People talking to each other in the chat. I love it. If he was doing so well with his own portfolio, he wouldn't be so concerned with ours. Maybe. That's a good roast. You know, I should have called this the roast. But I think Hex derangement syndrome is better because there are a lot of Bitcoiners who are deranged about Hex, and they're going to have to come to terms with it eventually. Hex isn't going away. What is up? McCormack is an outsider to the Bitcoin elite. Peter should know better. Yeah, a little bit. I mean, kind of. There's an interesting relationship between the big wigs and Bitcoin. You could do a lot of shows on them. Just the social psychology of it all. I've talked about that before too. Maddie flexing, yeah. To move forward through life with no expectations opens the door to be blessed in many ways. Check out the chat. On fire. Sacrifice for free speech. Everything else is a blessing. That's right. Where are all the people that are angry at us? They all left. They're gone. There are a lot of people who are happy to be here, happy to be using the truth engine as it was designed, happy. You know, I don't know how happy you can be that the volatility is like a feature. You know, like up only would be a cool feature, but that's a T-share price. So it's like, you know, how much better can it be? Imagine if RH was jacked though. Sure. we got like AI art that's already shown us that, so we can imagine it. How about the whole Crypty Girl giveaway? Yeah, that was cool. She staked, I think at least 1 million hex, maybe more. Shout out to her. And she was in the original sizzle reel for the highest of stakes. So that's a pretty legendary place to be in history if things go the way I think that they will. Crypty Girl, and I saw her like a post recently on Twitter or something. So she's still out there. She's still paying attention, and shout out to her. I always liked streaming with her because she was clearly somebody who came into the community out of this legendary example of kindness and people paying forward what they had gotten from early days of Hex. Crypto Stylist, K4K, and Coffee gave away 100,000 Hex to the community, 15K at the time. Amazing. And Ski Cat, gave away not only to Crypty Girl, but through me had given, and I say through me is like, I just, I picked a winner from the first mass Hex meetup that we did. And that was a debacle in and of itself, but it's cool. I think Uni was inspired from Ether Delta. I used Ether Delta to buy Hex. And I didn't even know what it was. And it was like a buggy, weird order book. And I didn't know enough. I wasn't a crypto expert at the time. So I actually don't know if it was inspired from Ether Delta. You say Delta ETH there, but I think you mean Ether Delta. Yeah. Early days. Yeah. I was just sitting there like putting in $50 here and there. Dude, you have no idea. Like the humble beginnings, right? The community is the biggest asset of all time. Totally agree. You can't copy the community, but the community can keep growing even better, right? Because it's our diversity compared to Bitcoin. It's our ability to work together because we have common incentives. It's awesome. You can't just copy and paste a community or a cult or a team of high performers. I will ask him. Pulse is a gas station with cheaper gas. Maddie has an army of followers. Yeah. I don't know if army is the right word, but I got fans and people who like to learn mostly. So, I've always fancied myself as a unofficial professor type, or maybe a little bit weirder than that. But hey, professors are pretty weird. Yeah, therapist, professor, volunteer, guy. That's me. Haters are fans in disguise. Oh, that's a cool one. And he's trolling you now. Eric's an attention seeker. Is he trolling me? Did USDC depeg again? I hope not. That would suck. It looks okay to me. Holy shit, Ethereum is on a run. What is going on? Ethereum, it says, is up 11% to $2,117. Wow. I guess what I was saying, I'm pretty sure I was saying on the show is like, yo, the Shanghai unlock is not that big of a deal. And I wasn't fully confident, but I told people what was up and I put my money where my mouth was. But that's really cool. And Hex is feeling good too, up 8%, it looks like, to 7.8 cents. and we know there's more volatility there, and that's a feature too. Wow. Look at that. It turns out time locking is working pretty well for Ethereum now, isn't it? And being semi-deflationary or dynamically something. I don't know if there's a word yet. Like, and by the way, that is man, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start proving how good of a person I am by like talking against my bags a little bit, because I really like PulseX and that shit's deflationary and people don't even know what that means these days. But that could melt your mind right there. The fact that you can time lock it with time pays me, like I'm gonna have to time lock my shit, and I should just shut up about it and not tell people how much I like PulseX right now, because I would want more of it. But at the end of the day, like, it doesn't matter. I really don't think it matters. If it even does 100x, like, who cares? If I could have gotten another, if I could have gotten another 30% or something, it's like, yo, I just got 10,000% or whatever it would be, right? Like, so, or would that be 100? No, yeah, I think it'd be 10,000%. Anyway, the point is, I would rather talk about it. I would rather talk about how badass PulseX is. So I'll probably do some more shows about that. But I'm just telling you guys, I like PulseX, and I do not have, I don't have as much PulseX as I have with Pulse in terms of my sacrifice points. So, I also really, really, really like Hex right now. Like, I really like Hex. I have the urge to get more Hex. I don't know if I want to like rebalance my finances at this point, but it's like I would want to delay gratification in some regards, almost, to like have a little bit more Hex if the price does super well in the short term. And like, the more runway I can get, then the more I can time lock longer. I can keep this ladder going, baby. So it's like, playing the short game and the long game both is kind of what we all have to do, unless we got rich from XRP or from Bitcoin or from Ethereum or something, and that like give us all the money we ever need. It's like not everybody's in that boat yet. So I guess with the bull run advancing and the FUD around Hex coming back again, like when it launched, it's a deja vu. Humans need big internal changes. Good point. Let's be real. Paying $80 for Uniswap transaction doesn't work for most people. Exactly. The PulseChain testnet barely works, just like all of crypto barely works. And it's a testnet and no expectations. And wouldn't it be cool if it worked just as well as the rest of all of these miracles, right? Or way better. That'd be cool too. So testnet's working fine for me. Thanks to Maddie, my wife and I have been taking Omega 369 every night for 2 years. You can see a difference 100%. I love it. Thanks for sharing, Freddie. That right there could motivate other people to give it a try. People, get out there and take your Omega 369. I have always been in the habit. Some phases I'll eat a lot of tuna. Sure, it's probably terrible for my magnesium levels. I'm like poisoning myself, but that's how I get my Omega 3. And if I'm not doing that, then I take I take 1,000 to 2,000 milligrams per day with food. And if you're on like a high blood pressure medicine, then you talk to your doctor first. But it's supposed to be in your food, so it's not as there's not as many warnings you would see, because if you're allergic to fish, then don't eat fish. And if you have access to fish, then eat that. And omega-3 is like the supplement if you don't have access to that, or if it's easier. Second, fish oil. Unplugged dad. There we go. That's a Kill Bill right there. I'm clipping this. Awesome. Eric who? Maddie puts on conferences in person and online and meetups, breaks even, zeroes out. That's how it's been going. Completely selfless. Well, it works out, doesn't it? And then I don't feel like I have some obligation either, beyond what I'm already doing. You know, it's like I see it as a fair back and forth. Thank you for everything you do. Hey, my pleasure. Surprised that Maddie never knew that cult is part of culture. It's literally the meaning. People become cultured over time, over a lifetime of experiences creates this. There you go. Why would Eric FUD his own sacrifice? That's a good point. When Toyota Corolla, yeah. Throwing truth bombs. All right, guys. Well, it's been about 2 hours. Hope that this has been helpful. Is Toby one in the chat? Yo. Gas showing up as ETH on the testnet. No, I haven't looked at that yet. But thanks for letting me know. Really got me fired up. Showing up. Therapy. Let me see. Let's see if anybody's streaming right now. We could do a raid. Hey, Randy Hilarski. Oh, he's playing slots, but it's better than nothing, I guess. Don't get addicted to gambling right after therapy. Hitting the, I don't know if it's good to hit the slots right after that. That's almost backwards. What about, oh, there's going to be an Access Alive stream tomorrow. Not tomorrow, in 5 days from now with Crypto Stylist. That's something to check out. Let me go ahead and I will, I'll send you guys to your friend Sami. He's just had fire content that I'm really addicted to. So he's not streaming live at the moment, but I want you guys to see his reaction video to Eric Wall. It's and Peter McCormick. It's a great moment in history. So I dropped the link there, and yeah. So hit the like and subscribe button, everybody. Thanks for being here. Leave a comment afterwards if you're here. Buy your Trezor from my link in the description to get ready for PulseChain. And until then, stake wisely, my friends, and peace out.
It's from Maddie ALLin of HEX Therapy.live. I like Maddie. Maddie tries to make the world a healthier place. He's a mental health professional. He's done research.
Videos on sudden wealth syndrome.
There's nothing that a human being can do better than trying to heal his fellow man.
Maddie ALLin's got that covered. Does emotional, feel good, mind management, emotion stuff like as his gig because he's a therapist. That's what he does for a living. Like he helps heal people.